In Climate Watch, plastics have made life easier in many ways, but convenience comes at a price. Plastic refineries can release toxic chemicals into the air. The health consequences are potentially deadly for people living nearby. Plastics also find their way into our food, skincare, and oceans. They are threatening the sustainability of entire ecosystems. The documentary, The Story of Plastic, aims to address the growing global crisis created by plastic. Here's a preview.
Plastics are treated as a product that miraculously appears from nowhere, and it goes to nowhere. It starts when the oil and the gas leave the wellhead, and it keeps on being a problem at every stage along the way. Why is it that we're seeing so much more plastics entering the environment? This is the story of plastics.
And Deia Schlosberg joins me now. She's the director of The Story of Plastic. Welcome, Deia. Thanks so much for being with us. And congratulations on your film. It is very, very thought-provoking. You know, plastics obviously have been around for about a century. So the planet has been living with these products that don't decompose very quickly. What, it can take up to 1,000 years for?
Yeah, it definitely varies, but it's...
So we now see the results of that, right? There are a lot more plastics than the planet can absorb. So what are some of the main issues that are being caused by this overflow of plastic refuse?
Yeah, so it's not just that it's been accumulating for that long, it's that production has shot up. So since 2005, and then especially again in 2015 when the oil export ban was lifted, the production of petrochemicals that are used in the making of plastics increased dramatically. So it's not just that we're accumulating plastic, it's that we're producing plastic at an alarming rate. And yeah.
And your documentary, sort of very interesting, looks at the entire history of plastics, from the way it was touted as this life-changing sort of miracle, which, you know, many people, to be fair, when it first came on the market in a broad range, like in the 50s and 60s, could never have predicted the sort of threat it would pose to the planet now. But there are different areas of the world that seem to be more threatened by it than others, or that seem to be living with the consequences of it more. And your documentary focuses on some of those areas. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I mean, the big problem now that we're seeing is in single-use plastic. So, I mean, people are excited about all the new uses of plastic in things like prosthetics and cars and making things lighter, but the reality is the problem that we're facing is the single use, the packaging. That's what's ending up in the environment, in the waterways and incinerators. And a lot of the plastic products and waste from the global north are being shipped to the global south. So places like Indonesia and the Philippines are getting the bulk of our products, new and used, and they have to deal with the consequences, and there's nowhere for it to go.
Right.
So it ends up in the oceans, it ends up on the land.
And so some cities are starting these zero waste programs. You interviewed the president of the zero waste program in the Philippines, and he said you can't just, you can't just rely on these programs. Let's listen to something that he said from your documentary.
The only way for us to address a specific product that is problematic is to not create it in the first place. We have tried to work with some corporations to address this problem, but what do they tell us? At this point, they're not made responsible for that. And that is what we want to change. That companies should stop that mindset that their responsibility ends when they sell it. They have to be responsible for the entire life cycle of the products that they produce. The solution cannot come from here, it has to come from the headquarters. These are typically in the US and in Europe. My vision for the future is all cities are going zero waste. After they've implemented the zero waste program, you can see the difference, you can smell the difference, you can feel the difference.
So, he and others like him are really throwing down the gauntlet to corporations and saying, look, enough, business as usual can't continue. But realistically, corporations aren't going to stop unless governments make them stop, right? So what is the next step that has to happen?
So I think first, citizens need to hold those corporations accountable. a big thing that Froy and zero waste organizations are doing is instead of cleanups, they're doing brand audits. So they do clean up some of the plastics, but then they figure out where those plastics are coming from. Who are the brands that are putting those out into the world, into the environment, so that activists and organizations and governments know who to target.
Public humiliation, right? get that out there and make people clean up their act. So Deia, where can people find out more about your documentary? It was produced in conjunction with Reactive Film, correct?
Yeah, they were in association with Reactive Film and presented by the Story of Stuff project.
And where can people get more
So
information?
the website for the film is storyofplastic.org, and a good website to go to get more information about the plastic problem is ciel.org/fuelingplastics.
Okay, great. Deia, thank you so much for bringing our attention to this really important problem. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.